Welcome to Reddit Chronicles. Today's stories: Abandon my mother for your mistress? Watch as you lose everything you worked for. A story that I kept to myself for so long. If you're new here, do consider subscribing to help me feed my channel and grow my cat. And if you liked the video, do kindly give it a thumbs up to help me out. Let's get started. This is a very long story, so I'll include a TLDR at the end. Names have been changed to protect the innocent. The background. Midway through my senior year at college, my father got the privilege of opening the first plant in China when his company was granted permission. He was getting everything, and I mean everything. Business class on airfare, a penthouse, recognition in the company for being effectively in charge of the project, mingling with the higher-ups in the company, the works. This was exciting news for him because he was close to retirement, and it seemed that his hard work was finally paying off. My mom was happy because now, with my younger brother starting college and me about to graduate, she and her husband of over 30 years could enjoy their empty nest. She loves us dearly, but she called my father her soulmate and wanted to spend their golden years together. However, things turned upside down in less than a year. Maybe the power went to his head. Maybe he was overwhelmed and stressed out with having to start a new life in a new country. Or maybe it brought out the ugliness that was already in his soul. I have no clue. I finished my senior year around Christmas time, only to see my father pack up his bags and leave us, saying he didn't want to be married to my mom anymore and was seeing someone else. To say the rug had been pulled out from under our feet was an understatement. It was like everything we had ever known had imploded. My father left us shortly before Christmas, and we started putting the pieces back together. I started working 2 jobs and slipping money into my mom's wallet because I was terrified my father would cut off our money. It was during this time we started therapy, and all 3 of us came to the realization that this man had been emotionally, verbally, and financially abusing us for years. It's something I'm still trying to work through, and I doubt I'll ever fully recover. Come springtime, my father had a change of heart. He contacted us and started making amends. Something in me was suspicious and held back, but I was happy because Mom was happy. She had lost a lot of weight, was crying constantly, and was all in all miserable. He returned home for a 2-week vacation and then proposed a 3rd honeymoon, if you will. He and Mom would return to China to work things out. My brother and I were staying back home, so we were both busy with work and school. Mom and Father left us with some important numbers to call in case of an emergency, the email address of my father's immediate supervisor, whom I'll call Stan, and weekly Skype sessions so we could stay in touch. Mom and Father left for China, and it seemed that everything would work out. 2 weeks later, it was time for our weekly Skype session. The first week had been fine, and my brother and I were expecting to hear another good report. Instead of that, Mom was alone, her eyes swollen and her face red. I immediately went into Mama Bear mode and asked my mom in a voice that probably scared my brother and Mom, "What happened?" Mom, crying, tells us that after making the rounds with the higher-ups, my father had packed his bags and told her he was going to Shanghai for 2 weeks with his girlfriend, and then told Mom, "I want you gone by the time I get back." Mom, floored by this, asked him, "How?" Father, "I don't care how." Then he left my mother in the penthouse with little food, no clean water to drink. We'd been warned to never drink the water in China because it was nasty to say the least, and no way to navigate through a country where she didn't speak the language or get away home. She said, "I think he was using me to look good at work. Everyone was saying they were glad we were working out our problems." When I heard that, my fury boiled. I'm fiercely protective of my family and friends. You can do whatever you want to me, but make any of my family members or friends cry, and you'll learn why it's a bad idea to pick on them. As much as I wanted to fly over to China, track down my father and his mistress, and make them feel every ounce of pain that my mother was feeling, I knew that wasn't a smart or practical idea. Instead, I'd have to embarrass him so everyone knew what a scumbag he is. And an idea came to mind. The plan. After getting the information I needed from Mom and calming her down, I worked on the first part of my plan, bringing Mom home. I didn't have any money, nor did I have a visa to visit. However, I did have Stan's email. Using the skills I honed from my creative writing and general business studies, I wrote a lengthy email to Stan, crying over the keyboard as I drafted it. I explained who I was, what was going on, and that I was worried for Mom. I asked him to please help me find a way to reach my mom and bring her home. I promised him that I would repay every penny, even if it took the rest of my life. I added my personal email and phone number as a finishing touch and asked him to contact me if he had any questions. After making sure it was perfect, a key lesson from my creative writing professor, make sure your writing is razor sharp. I sent it off along with a prayer that it would work. Stan never did return my email, but 24 hours later, Mom was safely home. I learned that Stan had gotten in contact with my mom within an hour of me sending the email, verified everything that happened, and gotten her home on the first flight. I sent him another email, thanking him for helping us, and told him I would repay the expense when I could. That time he did respond and said, "It's all right, thank you though." That was the extent of our conversation, but I'm still very grateful to him for helping Mom, out of his own pocket if I'm not mistaken. He's earned my respect, and I hope, wherever he is, he's doing well. When my mom got home, it sunk in for us that the marriage was truly over, and we made plans to move on. They were divorced within a year, and we moved to Florida for a French start, maybe a few years later. Mom found the new love of her life, whom I call my stepdad, is working her dream job, something that never would have happened under my father, and is happier than I've seen her in a long time. My brother and I are both making our way in the world, and finding ourselves after spending our lives as our father's perfect children. As time passed, I actually forgot about the email, until recently when Mom and I were talking about Stan, and she revealed what had happened. The aftermath. I was just hoping to humiliate my father. Instead, my email launched massive legal and financial headaches for my father. Right after helping my mom get home, Stan decided that my father's behavior was worrying, because if he's using his wife to hide the fact he has a mistress, what else is he hiding? And started an investigation into my father. What he learned was mind-blowing. Not only was his mistress one of his subordinates, which is strictly against company rules for some reason, I can't remember, but he had another mistress on the side, both of whom he was plying with expensive gifts and vacations to name a few. But that wasn't the topper. What was evidence that my father might have been embezzling money from the company during his trip in China. However, for some reason that I don't know, criminal charges were out of the question. Instead, what they did to him, my father no doubt thinks, was even worse. My father was immediately demoted and sent home. His name was removed from the factory he had built, and his mistresses fired. Now, with this company, most of the promotions came not from what you know, but who you know. And since Stan knows a lot of people, eventually, my father was forced to retire early before they fired him. He decided he'd been discriminated against and tried to sue the company for unlawful termination. However, the evidence against him was overwhelming, and he lost. Now, he's disgraced, hated by nearly everyone with limited contact with his family and friends. He's still convinced that he's an innocent victim and that time will prove him right, but everyone knows the truth. Do I feel guilty about helping bring down my father? I'll let Montresor's motto be my answer. Nemo me pune lacestit. If I said that wrong, someone correct me in the comments. TLDR. Father leaves my mother for his mistress. One email from me results in his dirty laundry being exposed, and he's left jobless, friendless, and without any loved ones. I don't know about you guys, but I'd say that was justice. Not only did he break company policy and it seems like the law, he broke the heart of someone who thought he was their soulmate. What I would say at this point, not that I have any qualifications to say this, is before you get married, make sure that marriage is for you. And if you know that marriage isn't for you, don't get married. Because if you do, you're probably going to make a lot of people around you suffer, and likely yourself as well. If you have any thoughts about the story, or marriage in general, if people should get married, who should get married and who shouldn't, etc., share them in the comment section. A story that I kept to myself for so long. I am drunk and I'm mobile. The story is told as I'm thinking it. So I was a sailor. I was the trainee engineer. It's a title in the engineering department of merchant ships. I had a very evil second engineering officer. He was just below the chief engineer, but his relative owned the shipping company, which owns the ship we were sailing in. So basically, he ruled over even the captain on board, who was a very good mentor to me and a guy I am still friends with. He was very abusive and a very evil human being. He was almost 7 foot tall, huge and intimidating. He was also a Syrian, but took refuge in Lebanon with the help of the shipowner relative, illegally of course. This will come up later. Our ship sailed through the Atlantic from Lebanon to Philadelphia, where they load cattle and bring it to Lebanon for meat. Our ship was small, 80 meters long and 30 meters breadth, and each time we go to the US waters, we would repaint the whole ship's interior. I wonder what that's for. If anyone knows, leave a comment. The journey is around 18 to 20 days, one side, so there was time to do the whole ship. Also, there was no limited working hours or anything in that ship. It was all under one evil guy, the second engineer. On to his evil deeds he did to me. He once told me to fight the electrical officer because he was bored. We were working. He said either we fight or there's no going to cabin. I worked for 32 hours straight that time because the electrical officer was as old as my father, around 50. Good on him for not fighting the guy. He always wakes me up when his shift of watch comes up, even though my watch starts 4 hours later, and it's not for working. It's to bring him tea from the mess hall, and after giving him tea, massage his shoulders and back for around 30 minutes. He would always make me do 2 people's job by myself, like lifting motors that weighed more than me. This is giving me back problems for life. My lower discs are screwed up for life. Once, he threw a makeshift Molotov at me that he made from turpentine and beer bottle. The reason? I discovered him pumping oily water from the bilge, basically a tank at the bottom of the ship, straight to the sea, and questioned him. I don't know how the US Port Authority never figured it out by themselves. There's a lot more, but now you get what he was. So we were 3 trainee engineers on board, and we were sailing through the Atlantic, and the sea was angry as F. We were rolling 15 to 20 degrees each side, means our ship madly tilting sideways along with the waves. And we were painting the engine room. It was my 18th hour or so, and we are trying hard to keep steady with the paint tin and brushes. Sailors who are reading this would know that he has broken every code in the book by now. So one of my friends who was painting some pipes lost balance and dropped paint on the floor. Second engineer saw this from afar and ran like some WWE actor and kicked my friend in the face. Then when he went down, second engineer kicked and punched the living hell out of him. I still remember my friend asking me what was the point of spending all the money and time to be an engineer if this is what sea life is like. We were all first-time sailors. The ship reached Philadelphia, and the rule among us was to act like we don't know English, or else face the very bad consequences. But before reaching the port, my friend told me we have to end the reign of the you know who, right? The second engineer. I'll call him from now on. So we wrote a letter, a huge one, stating everything, from the abuses to the marine law-breaking to his gold smuggling. Yes, it was there too, and we waited for the Coast Guard to board. They boarded and did their routine checks and all, and searched us and our rooms, and collected our documents for further looking up. Man, US is strict. Then the Port Authority came along, and they have a person who talks to every crew member, and finding if anything suspicious is going on. When she got to me, I told her everything, and showed the letter signed by 35 of our crew. Then we told her about the abuse and all. She was livid. She checked CCTV, and sure it's all erased. Then Port Authority did a thorough inspection on the engine room, and found the bilges emptied to the sea, which is like a major crime in the marine world. In the end, got arrested in US soil, and they tried sending him to Lebanon, but his passport was fake. It was not even his real name. He was an illegal immigrant in Lebanon. He got immediately sent to Syria. The rest told by the captain later to me. He was a criminal who was on lookout by the Syrian police. I don't know why, but it was something about joining the army or something. His relative escaped him from there, and made fake passports and documents and sent him to sail, which still happens in a lot of ships. He got arrested and later killed by gunfire in his own country. All his relatives escaped to Lebanon before all this, so there was no one to even take his body. He died like a dog. I hope you are burning in the deepest, hottest hellhole, fairies. If anyone knows why they were painting the ship every time they went to the US, leave a comment in the comment section. If you want more where that came from, simply click on one of these boxes right here. And if you liked the video, I assume you did since you're still here, share it with your friends to see what they think. And of course, if you haven't already, click the kitty to subscribe and you'll never miss another video. I'll see you in the next episode of Reddit Chronicles.